Hello everyone, Mike the MC, bringing another self-care video. You cannot fool the tribunal. Yes, this is going to be dealing with marriage today with respect to canon law, but also with respect to getting the approval from priests that you can nullify your marriage, right? And so I wanted to always do a video on marriage for a while and do some videos on this side of life as well, because as a counselor, I need to be aware of not only trying to help couples be stronger in their faith and the families, but also the idea that, hey, that everyone has needs as well. And so there's always many sides to the story, right? And you can always say, all right, well, what can we do to help other people? So maybe talking about the issue can also bring about some light on this topic. So let me share with you something from one of my interesting books that I haven't read fully yet, that I still am, but I think it has a good point here, by Paolo Bianchi. When is marriage null? Right, there he is. When is marriage null? And I think there's something to be said about from this book, that there's an interesting point he says, where you are trying to give your testimony to the tribunal to validate your case. But here's the thing that he brings up that is very important to you. And so let me share with you what he says here with regards to truth. So it is important to make them understand, if necessary, referring to the testimony, people making testimony, that stretching the truth or exaggerating can perhaps fool the advisor, but will less readily be accepted by a tribunal, which will have to be verify and compare the statements by the parties. So even with every party's statements, right, everything has to be verified to make sense. And so what makes sense in a marriage? What are the details that are true, that seem concrete, that seem relevant, that also are very understandable, right? But then what are the ones that really stand out that you're like, whoa, should we trust those statements, right? Was that man so abusive to his wife? Was that wife so abusive to her husband, right? And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what about the relationship to their children, to the house, to the animals, right? You have to look at the whole perspective. And that's why I like the counseling idea, where you're looking at a whole perspective from the person and environment idea, even from social work, where how is your environment treating your surroundings? So the tribunal has to look at all those factors, I would hope, right, when validating statements of marriage, seeing who is the guilty party or not, or to verify if the marriage is still valid or if it's going to go into a terrible place. But I think with regards to truth, with regards to marriage, talking about this the other day with somebody, they were telling me, when you have a divorce, right, it is technically a mortal sin against Jesus, because it's a severing of his connection between the two people. However, right, the good and the evil of life is always relevant. So if the evil, I would argue, is really there, prevalent and real, I think it's valid to say, okay, it's healthy to protect the people involved, the children especially, and to make sure that everyone is safe and that the damage and the evil is no more, to remove the damage by having the separation. But that is, hey, that's just my opinion on that. Okay, so you all may have different opinions on how to keep a household safe, everyone okay and not in danger anymore. But I figure with today's world of idea of love and trust, right, going back to even that piece, the idea of trust between couples and their families, etc., and you wonder, okay, where is the truth and where is the imposter? The imposter being, okay, we're going to just fake this marriage for our children, for the kids, for our household together. But then you wonder, oh man, faking everything, will it ever come to be true in the long run? Maybe I've heard several marriage stories where, talking with people, where eventually the wife eventually fell in love with the husband and vice versa, where it was just needing some time between the couples. So that's a key, that's a risk, that's a key factor. Let me ask you that. With respect to giving time and opportunity in a marriage for it to blossom and grow, and if we give that relationship a moment to become something great, I think that's a very valid point, because you can say, okay, yeah, there's first love at first sight, and then the goosebumps at marriage and all those other factors, and then, okay, maybe there are some dips and ups and downs in the first starts of marriage, but then all of a sudden now you're starting to rise. So I would argue that the troubles, the obstacles should build the couple together. Instead of going down from the obstacles, they're going to rise up. You're going to both come together and pick up from the obstacle so that it picks your relationship up even further, that trust. And so I think time is a very valid point, but for both parties to work together, right, and to understand, okay, if we're going to go get through this, we have to work together, and we have to think of our other parts of the family, the kids, the animals, the long run for their education. Maybe they don't want to live in the state anymore. Maybe we want to move to another place, etc. And you have all these questions to answer. And you're thinking, okay, with the rise of divorce, there's so many people that talk about this across YouTube and other channels and other real therapists and counselors in your communities. So yes, always seek other opinions about this, right? I'm not just the only one. But the thing is, I would always argue that obstacles, if both parties, everyone's working together, can build you up. I believe that's true. And that time, if you allow it in a relationship, it could possibly help everyone love each other a little further along the way to where they work together. But it's a risk. It's a risk because if the love is not present during that time, that you guys are spending time with each other, faking it till you make it, and you actually start to drift apart. See, that's the flip side of that with time. And so I would say, always be mindful and ask each other questions. Have those diligent conversations if possible. And if there's going to be just stonewalling, blank stares, nothing really happening between the two people and the kids, you think, okay, look at the signs and then bring those up to, as Paulo, the author, is saying, to the tribunal on the facts of what is true, that this is my statement of what's happening between me and my husband, me and my wife, etc. And I want you to validate these just to say, hey, we're not doing well. And so you have to have that timeline, and that helps the tribunal say, okay, there's a timeline of a healthy, unhealthy relationship here. If we see the unhealthy one, okay, maybe we could step in and say, okay, to nullify the marriage, there's a timeline that's established. We can help the people here. And just to say, okay, let's protect the kids and all the other parts of the household so that way no one's getting hurt. And so timeline, having a timeline in a marriage is very critical. And so it cannot be just like, oh, hey, just a fake story to be a one and done moment within a second to say, oh, this happened, now I can divorce, right? The statements have to be valid with some time. And so if your relationship comes to fruition over time, that's a different story. Where I was saying earlier, hopefully your marriage heals and recovers. But for those of you who are trying to guarantee the safety of your kids and all, have the use of time to your side to promote your statement, to make it true. But I know that's going to be a harsh thing to accept with regards to abuse and toxicity. And yes, it's going to be a patient game of just being strong during that time. So always seek support from people when you're going through the rough times. Have the boundaries. Make sure everyone's okay, and you don't have to save the world, right? Your partner and spouse will be okay. Your kids will be okay. Just make sure that everyone's giving their time and space with boundaries, and that we don't do more damage, and we just are trying to talk with each other. Talk with your community leaders, your specialists, your therapists, anyone in your community to make sure they're okay. And so with regards to truth, always remember that the one upstairs is always saying everything anyway too. And so his work in your lives is always there. And if it's time to move on and to separate, okay, that's a sad reality. It's sad, but it's also for the safety of other people too. And so that has to be taken into account. So don't give up on yourself. You know what you're doing. And I hope you make the right decisions for yourself. And when you go to a tribunal to validate your case for a divorce, speak with truth. And maybe everything will be as it should be according to God's will. Things to consider. All right, everyone. I hope this one finds you well today with respect to a tribunal. Having your statements validated, using the use of time to not only validate your statements, but also giving the relationship a chance to possibly heal and recover through obstacles. And so take the time to talk with your local priest, counselors, therapists in your area who specialize in this. And as far as I can offer from this channel, as I grow from my channel, look in the description and you'll find my Calendly entries, my links if you need some time to talk about this with me. So don't forget that resource is there as well. And I hope you all will be safe, be courageous, and don't give up. And always remember that you know your story well, and use your trust in yourself to validate your story. And I guarantee your story will be heard. Things to consider. All right, everyone. I hope this one finds you well. Take care. Have a good one.